Well, I think my topic tonight was the reincarnation blues. And really should have a saxophone accompaniment by Greg Butler. You know, I make up these program titles way in advance, and then comes the day, and I think, oh my Lord, what was in my head then? But reincarnation is a really fascinating subject, and I'll begin a little bit with my own experiences. Long before I heard of Baba, and I was in my teens, really, early teens, I began to have some very strange experiences of myself in past lives. And that was really the kick or the plug or the push that got me started reading basically Oriental philosophy, because the idea of reincarnation in most Christian theology has literally been suppressed. It was taught in the early church. You can go back and read the early church fathers if you're into it. It was taught in various Gnostic groups, Origen, the father of the church. And then at this famous Council of Nicaea, it was thrown out. It was voted on and thrown out. It's like a fact of nature. It's like voting on gravity. You don't believe in it, so you chuck it out. And yeah, I'm being attacked from the rear. Which is, when I found that out, I thought that's really humorous. Baba did explain, because he was asked why in the Judaic religions, which count as Judaism, Christianity, and Mohammedanism, reincarnation is only subtly hinted at now. And basically it's because Baba said that the cultures and the people of those times when he appeared as avatars, Jesus, Abraham, or Muhammad, the people really had no background in that cosmology, the idea of reincarnation. It would have been too much of a shock. But obviously to close ones, he must have revealed some of the esoteric truths about reincarnation. And if you go back and read, for example, in the Bible, there are hints like, as ye sow, so shall you reap. The mills of the gods grind slowly, but they grind exceedingly small. And then, of course, Jesus refers to himself, before Abraham was, I am, or I was Elijah. And then this famous sentence, Nicodemus asked, then should a man be born twice out of the womb of his mother, you know, because Christ said you must be born again. We've all heard of born-again Christians. I think they've got the wrong idea. Yes, you will be born again and again and again. And that's when Christ said, you know, I was Elijah. So he must have, we know the Bible texts are very limited and questionable in authenticity and all that, so he must have had some inner teaching, esoteric teaching. And the same in Sufi teaching, which is the esoteric side of Mohammedanism. They also hint at reincarnation, but they only hint. There's a famous poem by Rumi about, I was a stone, I was a bird, I was a tree, and now I'm man, and I will become God. That's the gist of that poem, which hints at reincarnation. And after a certain level, Baba says, of development, you do recall past lives. Or you may just accidentally, I would say, also flip. You know, the needle skips the track and you get a little bit of memory. I think we've all had these experiences. As they've done some research lately, a lot of scientists and psychologists have been interested now in reincarnation. Because of the culture, you see, let's say a child says, oh, I remember being Chinese or something. He's laughed at, you see. And whereas in India or something, they wouldn't. And there are many examples of children in an Oriental country who say, yes, I used to live in this village, and my husband was so-and-so, and my mother was so-and-so, and they've taken the child there, and the child is shown all knowledge of the past in very authentic detail. I have quite a few stories in my library like that. And of course, in Tibetan Buddhism, they even choose their teachers by having the child who is found to be the reincarnation of the previous lama, or they call it a tulku, and he has to identify the belongings of that previous monk or lama to become then again the head of the monastery. And there's some really extraordinary documented stories of that. So it depends on the culture whether you're going to acknowledge perhaps some of the feelings and intuitions you have. And we've all had some of them. Even your tastes and preferences or even life patterns can repeat very much of past lives. You may be fascinated with China, love Chinese food, or even certain colors and music, all sorts of things. Some people have actually almost relived their past lives. They move to the country where they used to live and get very excited about it, or become scholars. I sometimes think of these scholars that spend their lifetime studying one particular obscure period in history. You almost feel that they are so dedicated to what must have been a very familiar milieu to them. So it's not that uncommon to have reincarnation. I bet if I asked for raised hands there, I'd get a lot of people that have had glimpses. As I said, I did have glimpses, and it set me off reading Hindu philosophy, basically. Buddhism is the clearest on the subject. Very carefully details what reincarnation really is, what part of you reincarnates, and all of that. It's really an excellent treatise on reincarnation. They take it for granted. And what is reincarnation? Baba has said in his discourses on reincarnation something interesting on fate. Fate is man's own creation, pursuing him from past lives. And just as it has been shaped by past karma, it can also be modified, remolded, and even undone through karma in the present life. Most people have an idea, the word karma now is sort of bounced around a lot, that it's, punishment and doom and predestination and so forth. You kind of get this aspect of karma through rather faulty knowledge of it. And actually the best phrase to explain karma, if you're a scientist, would be the law of cause and effect, or in a sense, bounding back of energy. A good example Baba himself gives somewhere is the ball that you hit against the wall and it bounces back. And if you're a ball player, you know that just the angle that you hit the wall, then that ball will come back to you. Or physics, there's first little lesson in Physics 1, they have these balls going here. If it hits this way, it'll go that way. A good billiard player can understand the law of karma very well. Just you hit that bunch of balls, bang, they go this way, that way, the other. And you intuitively figure it out. And this is the law of mass and energy in the physical world. It has its duplicate in the subtle and mental world. And the key to your karma is really in the mental world. That's where it's all stored up. Just like we have some tape cassettes here tonight. Your mind, your ego mind, which is in the mental sphere, stores up impressions, sanskaras, from every single lifetime. And it's very orderly. They give you this little simile in some of these books, which I used to read, of a library. Like you go into the library, you have a Dewey Decimal System, okay? You know that volume H32 will be about such and such a subject, and it's all very orderly. You can go in a huge library, and if you know that system, you can immediately pick out that particular subject and book. I used to do that for the Encyclopedia Britannica, so I'm very familiar with library. And this is the way all your memories are stored. a memory is, you wouldn't really have any human existence without memory. And the idea of reincarnation is just an extension of memory through time and space. How do you remember even what happened yesterday? You've got to have some system where it's stored and where you can pick out quickly what you need or what you want. Because without memory, you would have no character, no definition, no ego mind, really. So reincarnation is just a word for a segment of time through which you, as an ego mind, have lived and stored all these impressions. And when you drop the body, I'm telling you probably everything you already know, because you've all studied Baba. When you drop the body, you've got this little segment of your one little life with all its memories, like on a film or on a tape recorder. And then you, quote, sort of chew that over or run it through or put it in the projector of memory, and it goes by you, and you have, because you're backing off from it and you're not involved at that moment in action, you have a chance to review what you've done, and hopefully you have some help there to interpret it, but usually not, unless you're pretty much of a student or a lucky person. And even if you're not very advanced, then it just sort of automatically goes into the computer, and it gets sorted out again into this little library, and the very impressions that you've created in this life get sorted into all the others you've accumulated. And then when you have the drive to reincarnate, you have a huge bundle of impressions, but you select out. It's just like when you want to play tapes. You take 3 tapes out of 5,000, and you're going to play those 3 tapes. And that's also, again, a very natural process which drives you to reincarnate and assume a particular place, time, personality, and everything. Sex, body, formation, everything in your next incarnation. Why does it work so logically? To me, that was always so fascinating. But the laws of those inner planes are just as exact as physical laws. We just don't happen to know them. We're not experts, we're not occultists. But they are just as precise. It's the law of karma. And Bob explains that what we're interested in is how he is relating to us and our karma, and how he helps with our karma. We don't have to spend a great deal of time on the law of karma, because it is, in a sense, automatic, mechanical, if you like, in the subtle and mental world. So how do we deal with it? I think Baba makes an interesting statement that the karma will go on and on and on, on and on and on, that you form incredible numbers of contacts, let's say even with human beings, never mind other forms of life or actions, but just your contacts with other human beings. Just stop for a minute and think, how many people at this point in your life have you met? From the most casual meeting to the most intimate one. They're just hundreds. I think most of us have just hundreds of contacts. And each one of those comes from the past. Baba said even someone passing on the street is karma. Just someone passing on the street. The cab driver that you hail and that goes by and doesn't stop. Or the man that gives you a 7-Up at the counter or whatever is karma, that you happen to be there at that moment, at that second, and he's there at that moment, at that second. So it's an incredible binding. It's like a huge mass of tangled yarn. It's whatever you want to think of it. Flypaper stuck together, millions of sticky tapes all tangled up. And each time you try to undo a bit of karma, you get stuck to some more. Even dreams create sanskaras. The basic way we do accumulate sanskaras is in the body, in your daily life. But even when you go to sleep and dream, then you're creating a sanskara, or working out one. So it is a hopeless deal. I mean, I think even if you, even like I said, when I experienced a few openings or whatever, little shadow plays or whatever the heck you call them, I thought, my God, my association with that random personality goes back 4,000 years, 5,000 years. You know, what am I doing here? I just don't like it. I don't see how I can ever. So that's what Baba says. It's going to be a hopeless thing, even with the best spiritual adding machine. You know, you toad up the pluses and the minuses. And the point is, you're only going to get out of this net of karma when it balances perfectly between positive and negative, yin-yang, good, bad, evil, and good, or whatever. It's hopeless without the Master's help. So there's no way to get out without the Master's help. You can be a saint, you can get to be a yogi on X plane or a saint on XY plane, and still be stuck with the last bit of tangles and never get out until a perfect one comes and snips that last bit. And that's where perfect masters or an avatar is totally essential. Meanwhile, if you're not at the liberation point, you still have an awful mess to deal with. And what you do when you meet Baba, and people have met him, you feel that something very tremendous has happened. You go through all the love and the recognition, all of that. This is all the beautiful side. But somewhere here, you feel that you've been carrying a sack of rocks and you've dumped it. And that's actually what you're doing when you touch the feet of a perfect one, or symbolically surrender to Baba or to the perfect one. You have put on him the burden of that whole long accumulation of karma. And he loves it. He loves it. That's what he's there for. That's his job. He can't run away from it. And he loves it. So dumping this huge burden, it's like the ocean that loves this little brook that trickled down 5,000 miles, and finally got there. And he welcomes it. Baba says when you touch his feet, then he automatically accumulates the dust of your sanskaras. Use the word dust, from all over the universe. You actually smear the dust of your sanskaras on Baba's feet. And that means then he has to deal with it from then on. Which depends on where you are, what your karma is, and so forth. And what happens is, you can imagine if you have been carrying this huge load, when you meet an avatar or surrender him, you do feel a certain lightness. I actually almost felt it like a physical lightness. I got the reaction of being, light. I really felt I weighed 50 pounds lighter. I didn't actually, of course, that would have been nice. But it's just a feeling of something being taken away. And Baba, at least as avatar, doesn't go into all the nitty-gritty and say, yes, once you were a very nasty person and you killed off 5 people. Or, he doesn't go into the past. Very seldom gave you even the barest hint, which is different from other yogis and gurus. They love to say, oh, you were such and such and such and such, and therefore blah, blah, blah. But with Baba, no. It's like taking a clean slate and going, chunk, and taking away some of that, especially by touching you. Baba explains that each time he touches you, he's taking away some sanskara. You don't know what it is. It just feels great. It's like a fantastic massage. That's it. Touch for health, spiritual health. And so then what happens? Well, after that first lifting of the burden, and this might happen, say, for people who just met Baba for 5 seconds and move on, may never come back to Baba, don't know what happened, they came out of curiosity, like my father. He didn't know what happened to him, he just came because he was curious about what I was into. But I'm sure that, some of the coal sack got thrown away and lightened the burden. Now, when the burden is lightened, obviously your lives are shortened, because that burden of sanskaras has to, your long life, not your short life.
I was saying, there's so many people who are Baba 90 years old.
No. I'm using the Hindu translation. There's a short life and a long life. And I forget the Sharir or something. But anyway, the life you're in right now is Greg Butler's a short life. The long life of Soul X is, millions of years. So that long life is shortened by meeting a master. That long life is short. And depending on how Baba's whim is, or your sanskaras deserve, or are being treated by a master, it's shortened X, 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 or X. And they're actually, I was telling someone the other day, people who have continuously met the avatar through their evolution, and therefore their lives have been very short in number compared to the millions of lives that we ordinarily go through. So they're still very close to the animal world, for example, because we have come up through the animal evolution first. We don't have to go into that tonight. So they have a great empathy with animals. And some people you might know like that. You don't laugh at the fact that they're more upset when their dog is sick than when you're sick, They have empathy with animals. And but Baba has shortened everyone's life, and who knows where he not only cuts down the necessity for you to reincarnate X number of times, but straightens out the kinks and the ruts and the maybe very deep propensities that you may have accumulated in this. For instance, we all have had violent karma in the past. We've all done the bloody deeds, and it's there, it's karma. And we have to work it out in certain ways. And Baba did explain about perfect masters and avatars, how they deal with it differently. A perfect master, to work out what are called red sanskaras, that is the deeds of violence we've all done, they may really beat you up or treat you badly physically, or make you go through very hard physical labor. Some of you read the life of Milarepa, how he had to build and unbuild all these stony dwellings, and he suffered physically from the violent karma. But an avatar doesn't have to do that, doesn't do that. He may just touch you. That was explained to me by Baba might bang you on the shoulder or pat you or pinch your cheek or something. And he's like taking off this red sanskara. And sometimes other sanskaras he might feel that or decide or work with it in the way that you might have to go through a certain percent of it. Let's say you're destined for a very serious illness or even death sometimes. Instead of getting that very serious illness or death, you might get, a bad case of the flu or have all your teeth pulled out or, something. And he kind of modifies it and foreshortens it. It's like, yes, you have to go through that particular result of actions way in the past, or maybe immediately in the past, who knows, I don't know. But he kind of foreshortens the karma. Yes, you do have to experience the pain and difficulty, but it's sort of shortened and sweetened and made a little milder. So when you want to get mad at Baba because a bad time, just think, well, hey, maybe it would have been 10 times worse without him. You had a bad accident, but you weren't, crippled for life. You might have had this or that, a lot of things could be different. We don't know with Baba. Baba did say to us in 62, the first morning, he said, don't mind if you get sick. He said, physical illness is the easiest way to get rid of karma. So it changed my thinking a lot. You go through a horrible illness yourself, or you know friends, or you go to hospitals, and you think, oh God, this is awful. But compared to the karma you might have to work out, a whole lifetime or lifetimes of karma for something you did, being very ill could be quite different.
So the doctors in the field for karma?
Doctors are there because they're just like scientists have invented the telephone. I mean, they've invented a great many things to ameliorate disease. And Baba always sent people to doctors in a very normal way. And always asked about your health. He's not pushing you into illness. But if you do get sick, then you have to think about why you're sick. Baba said premature physical healing might delay the spiritual healing. Because supposing you are sick, and I've dealt with it myself, you get very frustrated. You're lying in bed day after day, you want to do this and that, you don't know the prognosis, you have a lot of maybe dumb doctors. We've all suffered with that. And what are you learning? You have to be patient. You can't, you're helpless. You're helpless. And also, because you don't know why that particular illness came to you, you're not psychic, you're not occult, you don't have some guru telling you it's because blah, blah, blah. It's much more helpful. And this is one reason Baba pushes away occultism and telling you why you're this or that. Why do you have pneumonia? Why do you break your foot? Whatever. Because you can see that it's much easier to deal with just a simple physical condition. Okay, I've got to do this and this and that, and maybe I'll be well in 5 months. Whereas if you knew it's because you did a nasty, 3 lives ago, you'd go into all this psychological guilt and upset and emotion. All you have to deal with now is a physical illness. And so I saw that very clearly when I visited somebody who was paralyzed very suddenly. Whole life changed and everything. No prognosis for cure. Never did get cured. And I got one of those glimpses of why this person was suffering like that. It happened that it was a woman, a very beautiful woman, who suddenly was paralyzed. And I visited her, and I felt really bad. I thought it was, it was the whole situation. And I got this glimpse of her way back in the Middle Ages somewhere. She was a royalty or, a wealthy person of some kind. It was in a castle kind of place. They had these terrible dungeons where they tortured people, which is very common. Put people on the rack, all these nasty things you see in these museums, the Iron Maiden and all that. And she enjoyed it. She used to come down and watch these people suffering, being pulled on the rack, and all this. So, the karma in this life is to suffer almost those same pains. She didn't know it. And if she known it, what a horrible sense of guilt and feeling bad about it. This way she just had to deal with the physical condition. And I've seen several things like that. You see, it's a mercy. It's just what Baba said. It's a mercy to be just to face physical difficulties. And the same might be true of money difficulties. Maybe you don't know or remember that you were a bastard about money, in some other life. Stole the money, or whatever. Cheated. Was one of those priests that made people pay for their penances, It's a great Catholic scene in the Middle Ages. Squeeze money out of your renters or whatever. So now you're having a tough time with money. But now you just face that. You see, it'd be really tough for you to know what brought that on. However, as you study the law of karma, though, as Buddhism teaches you, ignorance is no excuse, no help, nothing. So why not accumulate knowledge about the law of karma? You don't have to know personally why you've got this situation, but you can get the principle of it. And that's what Baba says, too. You get the principle of it. And he says the one way you can get out of karma more quickly it's not necessarily through doing good things that counteract bad things. That's one way. But from understanding what you're doing, understanding your actions and reactions, that will quicken your getting out of a mess. If you understand the law of karma, this is the basis of Buddhism and Hinduism, basically. If you understand why it's a no-no to do something, You're going to, if you're intelligent, you're going to do that less. If you understand when you cheat on your income tax, maybe nobody will ever know about it. But you have cheated. It's all in that little library. And someday it's going to come right back to you. Your purse will be stolen. Your car will be broken into. Anything that happens to you, any tiny thing, good or bad, is your responsibility. You've done it to yourself. This is the essence of the golden rule. Nobody has ever been mean to you, cheated to you, cheated on you, that you have not totally 100% deserved. And once you face up to that, you're going to be a little more intelligent about what you're doing. I don't know whether you get to be a Jane and wear gauze over your mouth so you don't swallow bugs. I mean, they carry it to the ultimate extreme. But they do understand the whole thing. And it can get to be a little heavy to always worry about it. So masters like Baba give you some alternative. You've got to know the principles of action and reaction. But you also have grace. You also have love. You also have the chance through a master of a lot of help with your karma, which is such a tight prison, if you want to look at it that way, or a tight binding. And the more you struggle, it's like those nets they used to throw over gladiators. You've seen those Roman things. One guy had a net and one had a spear, and you throw the net over the other guy, and he can't get out. The more he's in it, the worse it is. Well, that's sort of like the more you struggle, the more tightly you're going to get bound sometimes. So you cut through it by surrendering to a master. And the biggest thing is Baba's grace, too. There's the law of karma. I had a big argument once with a Baptist minister that grace supersedes the law of karma. And you feel that with Baba. Everything's perfectly just what happens to you. You see Baba letting people go through their karma, their suffering, because it is necessary for that soul to learn that way. On the other hand, you see him being very sweet and just yanking somebody out of a bad situation. That's grace, too. It's grace because God is free. He's outside of his own creation. He made the laws of karma, but he still can, if he wants to, apply a little whim of love and grace. I would say that we can't understand how the two go together, the law of grace and law of karma, but we do know, as Christ tells us, or Buddha, there is grace. There's that exception. There's that little exception that is the perfect end of the perfect rule, I always think of the classic story of the thieves on the cross. There were two thieves crucified with Christ. And they're all three of them up there in this situation. They're all going to die. But one says, I believe in you. And the other says, no, you're just a bait. So one was St. Demas, the one who believes, the thief who believes. And so just in that second, that last bit of his life, I'm sure he was on the cross for some thievery or something, he got the chance. And Christ says, you will be with me today in paradise. You see, there's almost a beautiful harmony between the law of karma brought him to that point, yes, but his little spark of acceptance of the avatar and the last gesture of Christ, of grace, changed the whole thing. Now, maybe in the ultimate picture, that was all predestined too.
Right, because just because he was a thief doesn't mean that he was a lost soul. That could have just been his last lesson to learn in life.
That's it. We don't know the full, like the long life, I said, but just a short life, it seems like he took the chance and the other fellow didn't. But still, it was grace of Jesus to decide that, yes, the soul. It was a reward, and yet it was grace too. It's just like Baba's story of the lucky monkey, which, the animals have this whole thing too. Every week for a while, Baba would have a monkey brought to him. And then all of the Mandali with Baba, and they all dressed the same, would stand around this little cage or whatever it was. And when the monkey came out, Baba said if it jumped on him, it would be the lucky monkey that would become a human being in its next life. So monkey after monkey jumped and jumped on Jal or jumped on this one or Podge or whatever. And finally, one day, one monkey jumped directly onto Baba. And he was the lucky one. He became then the lucky monkey. And he always loved Baba. He followed him. Wherever Baba appeared, he'd just rush for Baba. The MeherBabaLibrary was given his care, this little Capuchin monkey, I think it was. But that's another story like the thief. It was his jump, his choice, his luck, but it was also Baba's grace to give this monkey the chance to finish the whole animal evolution and the next life be a human being. So that's sort of like us jumping at Baba by chance, and I've seen people just by chance, even here, and I've told this story in 56, we were all waiting for Baba in the Hotel Roosevelt here, and people having interviews and stuff. And this one young woman came by and looked around. It's kind of an odd thing, you see people waiting and people over here crying and people, there's a whole scene going on. And she said, "What's going on?" I said, "Well, over in that room there, the Messiah's there." "Oh, do you think I could meet him?" She didn't say, "Oh, you're full of blank. You're pass away or go away." No, could I meet him? "Yeah, sure, come on." So I took her up to Audie. I was standing at the door. And she went in, she met Baba, and she came out, and her eyes were sparkling, and she said, "Thank you so much. It was such a privilege." She didn't understand the whole thing maybe in 2 seconds, but she took the chance like the lucky monkey, And there's always that wonderful thing when the avatar is roaming around, that there are people. On the other hand, there are people, I remember waiting in the lobby of the building where the Sufi Center was in 56. A little elevator went up and down, and we were all waiting, Bob included, for the elevator to come down. And this one man, it's a tiny little hall, without looking, people can be so, whatever they are, rude or absorbed, barged out of the elevator, almost knocked Baba down, and just went completely out the door without looking at any of us, and especially Baba. And Baba, just for one fraction, looked at this person. And I thought, you see, just not being that lucky person that was aware of his surroundings and could have perhaps been like the girl, It does teach you a lesson somehow when you just see it happening like that right in front of your eyes, that some people are alert, aware, and some are not. It's like a room full of snoring people. One person is just slowly opening their eyes. It's very funny to be with Baba in public places because you're so excited and alert yourself. You're here with Baba, and then you watch them either look at Baba or not look at him, totally ignore. And it just gives you a funny experience of this karma. So I'm wandering off the subject. I thought maybe you'd have some questions. We do have some more programs, yeah. Well, I know I've thought through that question many times. I know that there are a lot of disciplines, yours isn't only one, where people try to find out the path to help them clarify their situation. I don't know where the line would be drawn. I think that what you self-discover and what you're doing is sort of helping people self-discover.
I'm not doing it. I'm not a psychic saying...
No, but I mean what your treatment helps them.
Right. Exactly.
It's like good psychoanalysts help the person study their memories or their past. It's the same with certain types of healing. You help the person understand their emotions better and clarify negative emotions so they won't be ill from the negative emotions. It's when you don't claim knowledge and use occult means to heal physically. I think that, to me, is it's a blurred line at times, but For example, Baba told us to go to doctors. He wants you to take care of your health. And I would say the same thing of going to a good analyst or a good psychologist or counselor. He wants you to use the techniques that are available to be better adjusted and therefore have better health and better adjustment to life. But when you start going to a yogi who says, yes, in your last life, 3 last lives, you were this and that, and therefore you should such and such, that's using an occult means to heal you. And I think as Baba follows, I'm not putting down what other teachers do. I mean, they have their karma with it all. But for us, I think that's getting out of the way of kind of trusting Baba to handle it.
So the having of memories and the understanding.
Yes, you can awaken memories. They come up. They did with me. I didn't try anything. But it did help me understand some relationships I had with my family, like my mother, and the positive and negative aspects of it, which I won't go into. It's kind of a wild story, but anyway, it helped, you know, but it came naturally. I didn't push for it. I didn't go get myself hypnotized and, you know, any of that stuff. So knowledge is always useful, but it's kind of how you are able to handle it in the right light. That's what Bob was saying. Understanding is important there, and motivation is important. See, a lot of people study past lives so they have power over other people and stuff like that. That's where you're getting into trouble. Somebody else had a question.
I was going to ask the thing you're steering away from. I was asking you what sort of effect did it have on your family and your boyfriends and everyone else, and all of a sudden this funny quirk comes into your life that all of a sudden you're remembering all these.
Oh, I never told anybody. In my day, to mention any kind of psychic experience, you were classified, you know, this was the real Freudian days, you were a complete, you know, psycho.
Yeah.
They didn't believe in life after death. You know, if you saw a ghost, which is very easy to see, I mean, they're all over the place, you know, oh, then you're a little strange, you know.
Did you ever meet with anyone that you both remember together?
Oh, yeah, we remembered the same thing at the same time. That can happen too. Don't forget, we have karma as an individual. We have karma in families. You don't come to a family that you don't have karma with. Very tight karma. You don't get married or have relationships with people without tight karma. You have group karma, and you have national karma. You have karma as a planet. I mean, what about those other people on another planet? You know,
what about mother-in-law karma?
Yeah, really, yeah. Well, now be careful. Your mother-in-law might be your daughter in your next life. You could hate your grandmother, and your child be your grandmother. But you know, you get born again. They're born again Christians, born again Bible lovers. You're going to be born and born and born again. And you'll have to bear it. Born again. It's interesting that we do. I feel, for example, even in our group, we are developing some group karma. We've had group karma in the past, and we're creating it now, and I'm sure it'll go on in the future. It's like what they call in physics a world line. Interesting stuff if you're into theory of time and space. Every object in space is, you know, it's got height, depth, and width, but it has time. And as time goes on, that line, they call the world line, is your endurance in time. And so we're all creating these long world lines. And they go more than one life. That's it, to go back thousands of years. And as a group, you can think of it as a whole bunch of lines as a group going together. And so you reincarnate as groups together. If you study civilization or art, you realize that certain groups have created civilizations almost. Groups like the people in Greece, in ancient Greece. It's a whole group of wonderful souls that came just at the same time and created this tremendous civilization. And the same with other times in history. It's like a group of people working together, 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 working